Every single person who has brains knows that the United States of America is the only terrorist country in the world. It plays other countries against each other. It plays other people against each other. So they will fight, and America will profit from their fights, from the wars between other countries, from the deaths of other people. And of course, the evil country, America, is made of many evil people. And one of them is this guy.
My apartment was covered in coal soot and sparse, to say the least, but this would be my home for the next 2 years.
He traveled and worked as a teacher in Inner Mongolia of China for a few years. And let's see what he says about China and the Mongolian people in the video.
The first evidence that I had that there might be some bad blood between the Mongolians and Han Chinese was when a huge brawl broke out, and I witnessed my local friend Jason try to break it up. Turns out some Mongolians walked over to a table of Han Chinese and said that they hated China and that Inner Mongolia was rightfully theirs, etc., etc. This happened many times. Mongolian students had stabbed Han students with swords. The people that I spoke to often couldn't communicate in Chinese, but when I did find people that could, they never hesitated to tell me that they were not Chinese. It was of the utmost importance that I knew that. They spoke passionately about how their land was taken away from them, and the army would frequently raid their settlements and yurts with accusation of separatism.
In the first part of the video, one Mongolia approached the table of some Chinese, of some Han Chinese, and told them he hated China. And some Mongolian students stabbed the Chinese students with swords. And in the second part of the video, the Mongolians told this guy that they were not Chinese. And they said the Chinese, the Han Chinese, took their land. I'd like to ask those Mongolians who say they hate China, those who say they are not Chinese, and those who say that the Han Chinese took their land. Have you forgotten something? Have you forgotten something? Do you know where the Great Wall is? Do you know where it is? It's between the original China and the original Mongolia. And do you know why the Han Chinese built the Great Wall? Do you know? That's because the Han Chinese didn't want to have anything to do with you. You Mongolians kept bothering the Han Chinese people along the borders. And then, in 1271, you Mongolians conquered the whole China, took the whole giant land of China. You dominated China for about 100 years. You treated the Han Chinese as second-class citizens. You forgot that part of the history? Don't tell me, when you are the masters of China, when you've taken the whole land of China, you enjoy dominating China. You enjoy treating Chinese, the Han Chinese, as second-class citizens. And when the Han Chinese have become the main administrators of China, you hate China? Hypocrisy bothers me. Hypocrisy troubles me. And this guy is also talking about Tibet in a bad way. Let's take a listen.
If you're like me and you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you probably heard the phrase Free Tibet. Tibet is one of those Chinese provinces that even people with a minimal interest in China know about. Here you have this massive swath of land in western China with 90% of the population who are not in fact Chinese, that speak a different language, eat different foods, have different religious beliefs, and vocally do not want to be a part of China.
Vocally don't want to be part of China? You're inciting separatism. You're inciting unrest. You know what that means? Do you know what that means? Separatism and unrest only mean suffering. And don't forget, 1,500 years ago, Tibet, the king of Tibet, who worshipped the Chinese culture so much, and he many times asked the Tang Dynasty to marry the princess to him. And you are in Mongolia, right? And don't forget, it was the Mongolians, when they conquered China, they conquered Tibet too. And then Tibet officially became part of China. Of course you don't know. You are a foreigner. You are ignorant of Chinese history. Don't think China is America. You can incite separatism like Donald Trump. Look at what he has done to the country. Division, unrest, attack of the Congress, attack of the Capitol Hill. And now you want to destabilize China. Evil people like you should be arrested and sentenced to life. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you can incite unrest. Freedom of speech doesn't mean you can do bad things and get away with it. In America, it could cause division of the country, cause attack of the Capitol Hill, cause hatred between different ethnic groups. You can cause a lot of damage to the country, and you might have got away with it. Like Donald Trump, but not in China. You would be arrested and put behind bars. China, including Tibet, Xinjiang, and Inner Mongolia, does not only belong to the Han Chinese. She belongs to all the ethnic groups that live in China. China is not like America. The very existence of the United States of America itself is the result of a robbery, an invasion, an occupation. The white people have killed millions of the Native Americans. And then they pushed all the rest of the Native Americans into desolate reservations. The Han Chinese didn't do anything of that. All the minorities in China, they can live in their original places. Look at what have happened in America in the last few years. riots. People goof around without masks during the pandemic. They have caused tremendous damage to the country. Look at America now. It's a mess. It's a giant mess. The Chinese people don't want that. China will not tolerate things like that. Your so-called democracy, the so-called freedom of speech, is a joke. They are nothing but extreme individualism. They are nothing but anarchy. Keep the shit to yourselves.